God says, I give late, but I always give better. Many people misunderstand God's timing. They look at the delay and assume denial. They count the years, the prayers, the tears, and conclude that heaven has gone silent. But God speaks in a different language, one that is not bound by clocks, calendars, or human impatience. When God says, I give late, but I always give better, He is revealing a divine truth that reshapes how we see waiting, suffering, and hope itself. God's delays are not punishments. They are preparations. What feels late to you is often perfectly aligned in heaven. We live in a world that celebrates instant results. Instant success, instant love, instant healing, instant answers. Waiting feels like failure. Silence feels like rejection. But God never rushes, because He sees what you cannot see. He sees the version of you that is still under construction. He sees the strength that must be built before the blessing arrives. He sees the lessons that must be learned before the reward can be safely held. God does not give too early, because too early can destroy you. What you ask for might be good, but what God plans to give is better. Think about how often you prayed for something and didn't receive it at the moment you wanted. At that time, it felt painful. You questioned yourself. You questioned God. You wondered why others were receiving what you were still waiting for. But time later, you realized that if God had answered that prayer immediately, it would have cost you peace, growth, or even your destiny. God protected you through delay. What you called late was actually mercy in disguise. God's timing is not about convenience. It is about completeness. He does not give half blessings. He does not release unfinished miracles. When God gives, He gives in a way that lasts. That is why He allows seasons of waiting. Waiting humbles the heart. Waiting purifies intention. Waiting teaches trust. And most importantly, waiting shifts your dependence from the gift to the giver. When you learn to trust God even without answers, you are finally ready to receive what is better. Many people want the blessing but not the process. They want the crown but avoid the cross. They want the reward without the refining. But God knows that a blessing received too early can become a burden. That relationship you wanted years ago, would you have handled it with maturity then? That success you prayed for, would it have drawn you closer to God or pulled you away from Him? That door you begged to open, did you have the wisdom to walk through it correctly at that time? God delayed not because He didn't care, but because He cared too much to give you something before you were ready. When God gives late, He gives with depth. He gives with meaning. He gives with peace. What He gives is not temporary happiness, but lasting fulfillment. His blessings don't just change your situation. They transform your character. They don't just solve a problem. They elevate your perspective. That is why when God finally answers, it feels different from anything you imagined. It fits perfectly. It comes without chaos. It comes without regret. It comes with clarity and peace that confirms this was worth the wait. There are moments when waiting feels unbearable. Nights when prayers feel heavy and unanswered. Days when faith feels weak. But even in silence, God is working. Silence is not absence. Delay is not denial. God is arranging things behind the scenes in ways you cannot comprehend. He is moving people, aligning events, closing wrong doors, and opening the right ones at the exact moment they will bring the greatest good. God is never late. He is never early. He is always precise. Sometimes God delays because He wants to give you something greater than what you asked for. You prayed for relief, but God wants to give you resilience. You prayed for success, but God wants to give you purpose. You prayed for answers, but God wants to give you wisdom. You prayed for comfort, but God wants to give you strength. The delay is not a refusal. It is an upgrade. God does not think small. His plans exceed your imagination. When God gives late, the blessing often carries layers. It heals wounds you didn't even know you had. It restores areas you thought were permanently broken. It brings closure where there was confusion. It brings peace where there was anxiety. That is why God waits, so that when He finally gives, you are not just happy, you are whole. What He gives does not leave you empty later. It does not demand your soul in exchange. It enriches your life without stealing your peace. Look at the lives of those who waited on God. Their stories were never simple, but their endings were powerful. What they received was not ordinary. It was meaningful. Their delays became testimonies. Their tears became proof of God's faithfulness. Their waiting seasons became the foundation for unshakable faith. God did not ignore them. He prepared them. And when the blessing came, it came with strength to sustain it. God also delays to protect you from counterfeit blessings. Not every opportunity is from God. Not every open door leads to destiny. Some things look right, but are wrong. Some people feel right, but are sent to distract you. God closes doors not to frustrate you, but to save you. What you thought was late was actually God saying, I have something better. Wait for me. When God gives, He gives at a time when you no longer beg, but trust. When you no longer demand, but surrender. When you no longer chase, but rest. That is the moment the blessing arrives. Not because you forced it, but because you were ready to receive it with gratitude instead of entitlement. God gives when the heart is aligned, not when the clock demands it. The beauty of God's late is that it removes fear. When something comes from God, it does not come with anxiety. It does not come with constant worry of losing it. What God gives is rooted in stability. It may arrive after long waiting, but once it comes, it stands firm. It doesn't collapse under pressure. It doesn't disappear with circumstances. That is what makes it better. If you are waiting right now, do not lose heart. Heaven has not forgotten you. Your prayers are not wasted. Your patience is not meaningless. God sees your faith, even when it feels fragile. He hears every silent prayer. He counts every tear. And He promises that what He gives will be worth every moment you waited. The delay is shaping you for something you will one day thank God for. God says, I give late, but I always give better. Because He wants you to receive blessings that align with your destiny, not your impatience. He wants to give you joy that doesn't fade, peace that doesn't break, and purpose that doesn't confuse. His timing may challenge you, but it will never betray you. So trust the wait, trust the silence, trust the process. Because when God finally moves, He moves with intention, power, and perfection. What is coming will not just meet your expectations, it will exceed them. And when you look back, you will realize that God was never late. He was preparing something better than you ever asked for. When God delays, He is often rewriting your definition of success. You thought success meant speed, visibility, and applause. God knows success means stability, humility, and endurance. If He gave you everything quickly, you might rise fast, but you would also fall hard. God is more interested in your foundation than your appearance. That is why He builds slowly, brick by brick, lesson by lesson, tear by tear. Because what is built slowly is built to last. Human timing focuses on now. God's timing focuses on forever. You see the moment, God sees the outcome. You see the desire, God sees the responsibility that comes with it. You see the blessing, God sees the weight it will place on your soul. That is why God delays, not to test your patience alone, but to protect your future. God will never give you something that destroys the very purpose He created you for. Many times, God allows you to reach the end of yourself before He releases the blessing. Not to break you, but to empty you. Empty of pride, empty of self-dependence, empty of the illusion that you can control everything. When you finally surrender and say, God, even if you don't give it, I still trust you, that is often the moment heaven responds. Because now the blessing will not replace God, it will point you back to Him. God's better is not always louder, bigger, or flashier. Sometimes God's better is quieter, more peaceful, less chaotic. You may receive less than what you imagined, but far more than what you needed. God's better doesn't impress the crowd, it satisfies the soul. It doesn't just look good on the outside, it feels right on the inside. That is how you know it came from God. There is also a divine reason God allows others to receive before you. Comparison is painful, but it is also revealing. It exposes whether your faith is rooted in God or in outcomes. When you can celebrate others while still waiting for your turn, you show heaven that your heart is ready. God is not threatened by your questions, but He is drawn to your trust. Waiting with faith speaks louder than receiving with pride. Sometimes God delays because the people connected to your blessing are not ready yet. Your future partner may still be healing. Your destiny helpers may still be learning obedience. Your opportunity may still be forming. If God connected you too early, the blessing would break under pressure. So He waits, not just for you, but for everything connected to you to align. God's timing is collective, not individual. When God gives late, He also removes confusion. You don't have to force it. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to convince yourself it's right. There is clarity, there is confirmation. There is peace that logic cannot explain. Even if the blessing scares you, it does not confuse you. God's better does not require manipulation. It flows naturally into your life because it belongs there. The delay also teaches you gratitude. What you wait for, you value differently. What comes easily is often taken lightly, but what comes after prayer, tears, and patience is respected, protected, and honored. God delays because He wants you to cherish what He gives, not consume it carelessly. His better blessings are not disposable. They are sacred. God's timing also heals your perspective. In the waiting, you learn that your life is not on hold just because a prayer is unanswered. You learn to live fully, even without what you desire. You learn joy without completion, peace without possession, purpose without proof. And that maturity changes how you receive the blessing when it finally arrives. It no longer defines you, it complements you. When God finally gives, you realize something powerful. The delay shaped you more than the destination. The waiting built character. The silence built faith. The uncertainty built strength. And the blessing becomes a confirmation of growth, not the source of it. You are no longer desperate. You are grateful. You are no longer empty. You are ready. God's late also protects you from regret. Many people receive early and spend years wishing they hadn't. God would rather make you wait than make you regret. His love is too intentional to rush outcomes. Every delay carries wisdom. Every closed door carries protection. Every unanswered prayer carries a lesson preparing you for something higher. If you could see what God is preparing, you would stop rushing Him. If you could see how perfectly it will all make sense, you would stop doubting. One day, you will look back and realize that the timing you complained about was the timing that saved you. You will thank God for every not yet, every wait, every silent season, because they led you to something better than you ever imagined. God does not measure time the way humans do. A delay for you may be a setup for generations after you. What He gives you may not only bless you, it may bless your family, your future, and people you will never meet. That is why God takes His time. Eternal impact requires eternal patience. So if you are tired of waiting, Rest in this truth. God is not slow. He is strategic. He is not ignoring you. He is aligning you. He is not withholding. He is upgrading. What is coming will arrive at the right time, in the right way, with the right impact. God says, I give late, but I always give better, because His goal is not to impress you, it is to fulfill you. Not to rush your story, but to perfect it. And when the blessing finally arrives, you won't say, why did this take so long? You will say, now I understand.